Good afternoon. I am Constable Mike Cuttersub, and I will be the moderator for this media availability for the Auditor General's reports on the Ottawa Police and the board responses to the convoy protest. Bonjour, je suis l'agent Cuttersub et votre modérateur pour cette disponibilité aux médias en lien au rapport de la vérificatrice générale sur les interventions de la police et de la commission pendant la manifestation du convoi. Nos participants sont le maire de la ville d'Ottawa, M. Mark Sutcliffe, la présidente de la Commission des services policiers, Mme Suzanne Valiquette, la vérificatrice générale de la ville d'Ottawa, Mme Nathalie Goujon, et le chef de la police d'Ottawa, Eric Stubbs. Our speakers are the City of Ottawa Mayor, Mark Sutcliffe, the Chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board, Suzanne Valiquette, the Auditor General of the City of Ottawa, Nathalie Goujon, and the Chief of the Ottawa Police Service, Eric Stubbs. And now for some logistics for media participants. We have approximately 1 hour. Nous avons environ 1 heure pour cette disponibilité. Please do not raise your hand in Zoom. As a moderator, I will call upon registered media to ask their question when the time comes. S'il vous plaît, ne levez pas la main dans Zoom pour parler. Seuls les médias qui se sont inscrits au préalable pourront poser une question lorsque je les inviterai à le faire. Il est à noter que l'enregistrement audio et vidéo seront permis dans le contexte de cette disponibilité aux médias. Audio and video recordings are permitted during this media availability. We are recording this meeting and the chat function has been disabled. Nous enregistrons cette discussion et les commentaires via chat ne seront pas permis. The media availability will be posted to the Ottawa Police YouTube channel afterwards. Une vidéo de la disponibilité aux médias sera disponible plus tard sur la chaîne YouTube de la police d'Ottawa. The question period is now open. La période des questions est ouverte. When I name you, you'll be asked to unmute your microphone, and then you can ask one question and one follow-up question. Le média qui est annoncé pourra poser une question et une question de suivi. La fonction Unmute du micro devra d'abord être activée. We will first start with Guy Kenville from CBC Ottawa. Guy, it's all yours.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
Great. This first question is for the Auditor General. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about specifically what unanswered questions are you hoping to see answered by the Public Inquiry Commissioner in order to allow you to know what areas you could then delve into in a follow-up audit, as you indicated, might be necessary. Like, what specifically are you looking to see the PEOC answer so that it allows you to know what areas you need to delve into still?
Thank you very much for your question, Guy. I think first and foremost, really understanding the plans and the preparedness of the police service and whether or not they had taken adequate measures with the information that was available to them. I think that's a very important question to have answered. And also what can be done moving forward to prevent any issues that arise. So I'd say first and foremost, that's the answer that I'm looking to see if the Public Order Emergency Commission does answer. I think the next piece I'd like to better understand a little bit is with regards to the intelligence gathering and the level of intelligence that was provided to the service. I think that was also very important in how the events over the 3.5 weeks unfolded, as well as their ability to be adequately prepared. So at the end of the day, it's really how much the Public Order Emergency Commission dives into the planning, because I think at the end of the, I know I've said that a few times now, but at the end of the day, it really is all about appropriate planning for an event and being able to shift gears based off of new information and an ever-evolving situation.
Thank you. This next question is for Police Chief Stubbs. Chief, I know obviously you weren't the leader in place at the time of the convoy crisis, but you do lead it now. And so I think it's fair to ask this question. I'm wondering if you can talk about, like, what do you make of the fact, or what do you make of the findings of this audit that showed that the police chief at the time was not sharing adequate info and early enough with the board that's tasked with governing it? I mean, just what do you make of those findings? And what will be your own, I know you sort of touched on this, but what will be your own philosophy going forward, specifically when it comes to sharing info with the board on major events? How will you effectively do things differently than the previous police chief did? So yeah, what were your impressions of the findings about the lack of information sharing with the board, and how exactly will you do things differently than your predecessor on that score? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about what the former chief did or didn't do. The findings that were made, obviously, as a service, the Auditor General found that the communication was lacking. And I think the service understood that fairly quickly and shifted gears, throughout the convoy, and communication did improve. And then as the convoy ended and the year progressed and multiple events were upon us, Rolling Thunder, Canada Day, etc. And this is well before I got here, and it's credit to Interim Chief Steve Bell, who led a number of changes throughout the year. And then, leading up to now, I'm sitting in the chair, and the changes that I've seen even since I've started in regards to how we're operating going forward. And again, as I mentioned in my comments at the board meeting an hour ago, what we did during the weekend of January 28th and 29th, I think, displayed the amount of changes that have occurred. And in fact, we are listening to lessons learned. We are listening to the Auditor General and her recommendations by the communicative strategy and the sharing and the collaboration that we had this past weekend, and what we're continuing to do as we work through the month of February and a number of different dates that may have protests.
Thank you, Guy. We'll now move on to Tyler Fleming with CTV Ottawa.
Hi, can you hear me? Perfect, thank you. Chief Stubbs, two questions for you. The first one, the end of the convoy anniversary is now approaching again, and there's likely a potential for yet another protest. Police must be prepared this time, and given the, on the heels of this report, there's probably a lot of collaboration and communication and information sharing going on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I can, and similar to what my answer was, how we operated a couple of weekends ago is exactly how we're approaching this coming month. And prior to the open police board meeting, we had a closed board meeting, and myself and my team briefed the police board on what we're doing this month and leading into March. Earlier today, I was part of the emergency. The Office of the Emergency Management Group, a control group, which contains numerous City Hall department leads. And again, myself and Deputy Chief Paul Burnett updated that group on our plans. So that's just two quick examples of how we are collaborating and how we're communicating with all the partners that might be involved this weekend. And of course, that also extends to other police agencies such as OPP, Peel Regional, Toronto Police Service, as well as the Parliamentary Precinct. We're heavily involved with that organization as well. So really, we're talking to everybody, and that includes those that might be involved in the protest.
Thank you. My second question, I'm just going to shift subjects a little bit. It's about the construction company Highbridge, and people have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars after the business shuttered. We hear some of those victims have filed fraud complaints with the police. Is this a matter that is being investigated, and could charges be laid?
Yeah, very unfortunate set of circumstances that have been reported to us. I will confirm that. And we have launched an investigation. Our fraud unit is leading that investigation. It much too early to comment on whether or not charges will be laid. These types of investigations can be very complex, involve numerous interviews, and a lot of evidence collection in regards to electronic and paper. So we have to proceed very methodically down this investigation, but we certainly encourage those that have been victimized to contact us so we can speak with you as well.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Chief. And just as a reminder, we are here to discuss the Auditor General's reports related to the police board and response to the convoy. So I would ask that you keep your questions to this topic. We'll now be moving on to Charles-Antoine Gagnon with Le Droit. It does not appear that he is logged on, so we're going to move on to Taylor Blewett with Ottawa Citizen. Taylor, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay? So my first question is for the Auditor General. Ms. Jean, I'm wondering if you can speak to any other reviews you're monitoring to determine whether to do anything more on your own audit work on the OPS response to the convoy. Obviously lots of discussion about the Public Order Emergency Commission, but I'm wondering about any other reviews you are waiting to look at. And related to this, do you know roughly when you'll be able to say, okay, yes, we're resuming an expanded OPS convoy audit, or no, we won't be?
Thank you very much for your question, Taylor. Obviously, yes, there's the Public Order Emergency Commission that we're waiting for their report later this month. Also, the Ottawa People's Commission, there's one report that's out. There's another that is set to come out. And what many people might not recall is back during the events following the convoy protest, the board actually made a request of the Ontario OCPC, the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, to look into the events that unfolded. So obviously I'm unaware as to whether or not there's any investigation or review being undertaken by them. We will reach out to get any sort of update from them once the other two bodies have reported, to then determine whether or not there's any other organization that is covering off the areas of concern. I would also state, which I've yet to mention, once we kind of get a little bit more of the lay of the land of what questions have been answered and which ones haven't, there's a whole new board that's now in place, and I will likely be taking the time to meet with each member of the board to further understand their current concerns. And that will help us make a determination as to what, if any, we will continue to look into.
And a follow-up will be actually on that, which would be, can you speak to the factors that you'll be considering when you make that decision to resume or not an expanded OPS convoy response audit? We've obviously heard a lot today about lessons that have already been learned, changes made at the force in the convoy's wake. So yeah, just can you kind of explain any further how you will ultimately decide if an expanded audit is worth undertaking, the factors you'll be weighing in that?
I think first and foremost, as I mentioned, a few of the key answers that I'm hoping to get a little bit more information about is whether or not there's going to be any answers with regards to the service's adequacy of planning, gathering of intelligence, and usage of intelligence within their plan. So if we're not seeing any answers with regards to that level of detail, I can assure you that it would be very difficult of me to not move forward. We do always have to take into consideration the resources that I have within my office and from a timing perspective, because obviously we've already hit the 1-year anniversary and I wouldn't want to delay the work by too much longer. So those would be the two factors. One, which answers are still, I guess, looming, as well as the availability of resources from my office.
Thank you, Taylor, and thank you, Nathalie. We'll now move on to Julien David-Pelletier with Radio-Canada. Julien, go ahead.
Oui, bonjour, m'entendez-vous? Oui, super. Ma première question serait pour Madame Goujon. Dans votre rapport, j'ai noté que vous vous réservez le droit d'approfondir vos travaux une fois que les autres enquêtes vont être terminées. Quelles sont les prochaines étapes, donc?
Merci pour votre question, Julien. En premier, c'est vraiment de voir les résultats de les autres revues enquêtes qui sont en mesure de finaliser sous peu. Si on n'a pas des réponses à des questions clés spécifiquement au sujet de la planification, est-ce qu'elle était appropriée par le service? Est-ce que les processus de collection et de partage d'informations privilégiées, si on n'a pas assez de détails ou des réponses reliées à ces sujets, je croirais que mon bureau serait en position de faire plus de travail. Mais encore, comme j'avais juste mentionné à Mme Blewett, il faut que je prenne aussi en considération les ressources que mon bureau a et de regarder comment on peut rédiger ou redistribuer les tâches, plus ou moins. J'espère que ça répond à ta question.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Ma prochaine question serait pour le maire, Monsieur le maire Mark Sutcliffe. Peut-être activer votre son. Oh non, c'est quelqu'un d'autre qui... D'accord. Ma question, ce manque de communication entre la police et les services de police, qu'est-ce que vous diriez pour rassurer le public par rapport à ce qui a été fait et ce qui va être fait pour améliorer la situation par rapport à ça, si jamais d'autres événements du genre devaient arriver?
Le manque de communication entre
la ville et le service de police.
Alors, je ne vais pas répondre aux questions au sujet de la rapport de la ville avant que la réunion de vendredi prochaine. Alors, si c'est une question au sujet de la rapport des communications entre la police et la ville, c'est une question pour la semaine prochaine, je pense.
Ah, d'accord, d'accord. Donc,
oui.
Si je peux me limiter, dans le fond, à la commission des services policiers, c'est ça?
Oui, alors je vais laisser la présidente de commission, Suzanne Valiquet, à répondre.
Bonjour, Julien. Bonjour, Julien. Est-ce que tu pourrais répéter ta question, s'il vous plaît?
Oui, en fait, la commission des services policiers, on a noté dans le rapport que, il n'aurait pas été utilisé à son plein escient. Qu'est-ce que vous diriez pour rassurer le public sur ce qui a été fait et ce qui va être fait à l'avenir?
Bon, d'accord. Merci pour votre question. Ce qu'on a voulu communiquer à la vérificatrice générale, c'est qu'on a les moyens, à travers le comité de la gouvernance de la commission, de discuter justement des enjeux avec tout ce qui a à faire avec un événement majeur. D'accord? Alors, on va rediscuter des politiques, on va discuter des façons, des stratégies de communication qu'on va pouvoir adopter sur papier pour que la prochaine fois, on soit en mesure de bien communiquer tout le monde, communiquer avec la ville, communiquer avec les services ainsi que le public. Alors, ça sera à travers notre comité de la gouvernance.
Merci, Julien. Merci, Suzanne. We will now move on to Etienne Malouin with TVA. I do not believe he is logged on. Then we'll continue to Cindy Tran with the Canadian Press. Cindy, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. This question is directed to Chief Stubbs. So I know that just from hearing from some residents and just reading through the reports, there's still a lot of mistrust with OPS, and with the report that came out, there's an increase in that. And I understand Guy had mentioned this, you're inheriting this from a previous board. So how are you going to be working with, I guess, residents to ensure you're working towards this potential February protest coming up for the end of the convoy? How are you going to be providing residents with adequate information and being transparent so that they don't feel a lack of support by police services?
Thank you, Cindy. You know, I think there's a number of strategies that that we have taken and we will take to try to, you know, gain back that trust and that confidence that we can manage these events. And again, I'm going to go back to you know, a couple of weekends ago, January 28th and 29th. You know, the strategy we had there. You may recall I was in the media the week preceding that weekend. On a number of occasions, talking about our preparedness and what we were doing to ensure the safety of the community in that general area, not allowing vehicle-based protests, etc. As the event unfolded, we did, you know, release information to the public, to city councilors, to the police board, updating them on what was occurring and what was going on the ground, so people were more informed. And I think this communication strategy that we need to employ pre-event, during the event, and post-event is important. And you know, to gain back that trust, you know, certainly, you know, going to meetings and talking about their concerns is one thing, but I think what's really going to do it is action and results, and that's having these events come, showing them that we want to communicate with them, that we're prepared. And unfortunately, we move on to the next one because there always is a next one in the capital of Canada. So time will, hopefully, over time, that trust will come back.
So my next question is perhaps directed towards Mayor Sutcliffe and maybe you as well, Chief Stubbs, but it's regarding communication right now. So I know during the meeting, Councillor Curry had mentioned that communication between the city and OPSB has improved since the convoy has occurred. But I was wondering, what might you be doing right now to strengthen that communication and that transparency so that to ensure that something as large scale as the convoy doesn't happen again?
Well, I think there's two elements to what you're asking. I think that ensuring that something like the convoy not happening again is a multifaceted response that includes more than just communication. It includes the response of the Ottawa Police Service, and I'm confident and I'm reassured by all of the work that's been done by the Ottawa Police Service in recent months and weeks to avoid events like what we saw last year, and by the plans that I know that are in place to prevent those events from happening. In addition to that, obviously, it's very important that there is strong communication between the police and the Police Services Board. And since I've become a member of the Police Services Board, the communication, in my view, has been excellent. There's been a high level of communication about potential events and how the police are responding to them. And I'm confident that that's going to continue under Chief Stubbs.
And Cindy, I might just add to that, you know, obviously you can always improve on communication. More is always welcome. But in addition to what the mayor just mentioned, there are a number of key tables that now exist. And if they did exist even before, it's a lot more robust and a lot more interactive with key partners that are there. We've established the integrated emergency command table that has proven to be very valuable as each event comes. The major players are at the table. They all receive the same information and they understand the decisions that are made at the time. The Office of the Emergency Management within the city, we meet with them on a regular basis, and I have this week myself. We also have another table, the Emergency Operations Center Control Group. Earlier today, myself and Deputy Burnett were with key members of City Hall updating them on what's coming in the next month. So there's just layer after layer of positive communication occurring between all the relevant partners.
Thank you, Cindy, for your questions, and thank you, Chief, and thank you, Mayor. We have now concluded the questions from all media. I'll give this opportunity for some closing remarks if necessary. I'll ask each speaker if they have any closing remarks to make before we end this meeting. We'll start with the Mayor, Mark Sutcliffe. Sir, do you have any closing remarks?
I just want to thank the Auditor General and her team. Alors, encore une fois, je veux remercier la vérificatrice générale et son équipe pour un très bon travail. So much great work went into this, and I think the recommendations have been very well received by the police and by the Police Services Board. And I'm confident that a lot of these measures are already in place to ensure that there is the right level of communication going forward, that we are approaching things differently as a police board, that we have the right resources in place as the board, and the right kind of experience and training available to board members. So there's a lot that has to be done, but there's also a lot that's already been done to make sure that we're in a better position to deal with these events in the future. So this work is very helpful and very productive and constructive, and I'm grateful to the chief and to everyone at the Ottawa Police Service as well for all the hard work that they have done in the last year to ensure that an event like this doesn't happen in Ottawa again, and to ensure that the right kind of communication is in place across the board. Merci, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll now move on to the Chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board, Suzanne Valiquette. Do you have any closing remarks?
Pardon. Merci, Mike. J'aimerais, moi, remercier les membres de la commission. I would like to thank my board members who went ahead and approved that in March of last year, we would ask the Auditor General to do this audit for both our board and the service. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. And I would also like to add that this audit was all about doing better going forward. And so on that note, I will leave it to the chief, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. We'll now move on to the Auditor General of the City of Ottawa, Nathalie Goujon. Nathalie, do you have any closing remarks?
Merci beaucoup, Mike. Premièrement, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for their collaboration and their openness. It's not easy having a retrospective look of all of your efforts. I do want to highlight that while we highlight throughout our audit areas for improvement, there was a lot of effort by all parties in order to manage the events that unfolded last year. So, we highlight the areas for improvement, and that tends to be the focus of everything, but I also don't want to take away from all the hard work that was done by many different organizations and parties within the city.
Thank you, Auditor General. We'll now final up with the Chief of the Ottawa Police Service, Eric Stubbs. Sir, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mike. When an audit occurs, there's different ways that you can respond to an audit. You can be defensive and you can treat it as a negative event. That's one way to treat it. But I think the most productive way to respond to an audit is to look as an opportunity to learn and to get better and improve. And that's the way the service has responded to Natalie and her team. Very open to explaining what we did or didn't do and receiving those recommendations and implementing them. So I appreciate the effort, the board, initiating this review in March, and the work that has went by Natalie and her team throughout the year. I think we are better. We're better than we were a year ago in terms of a number of processes, and we've learned a lot. So I think that's really a positive thing, and I think it feeds into a question from Cindy in terms of the public trust. These audits, these recommendations make us better, and we are better. So I thank you, Natalie, for you and your team, and I also thank for again to the board for working with us to get to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. This concludes our meeting for this afternoon. I'd like to thank all of our speakers as well as our media representation that we had this afternoon for your questions. If there's nothing else, thank you for your participation, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Mike.
Merci, bonne journée tout le monde.